This perfume is the dream of my future. Hello everyone. Recently, Pep from the Sentinel did a video on his Forever perfumes and I kind of got inspired by that, so I decided to do my own. And I haven't classified my fragrances the way he has, but I did try to stick to the rule of not including fragrances that have been discontinued. These are all fragrances that have been available for a long time and will continue, I hope, to be available for a long time. I have allowed myself the luxury of including fragrances that are perhaps a little bit more bespoke, but for the most part, these, even if they're niche fragrances, they're still pretty much widely distributed and readily available. So let's just get right into it, shall we? The first fragrance that I want to talk about is actually one that I haven't talked about for a little while, even though it has been one of my favorites for many, many years, and that is Samsara. I just love Samsara. I think it is a beautiful sandalwood fragrance. This fragrance takes me back to my childhood actually, because I think when I was in primary school, all of my friends, mothers, and perhaps older sisters were wearing this. And so it takes me back to an era in my life. It just takes me back to my primary school years basically. And whilst I now consider it to be a sandalwood fragrance and it's widely described as being a sandalwood fragrance, it actually took me a really long time to understand or to detect the sandalwood in this fragrance, because there are a lot of florals in here as well, particularly white florals. And so it wasn't until I had a fairly decent year of exploring more sandalwood fragrances that I finally was able to understand the sandalwood in this fragrance. In any case, I really, really love it. I also have it in a vintage bottle, and I also have it in the eau de toilette form. And I know a lot of people are disappointed with the more recent formulations of this fragrance, but to me, it still smells like Samsara. And yeah, okay, the vanilla is not quite the same, but it's still beautiful and it's still very much Samsara to me, and I just love it. And I think I only bought this EDT last year actually, and I've already made a fairly sizable dent in it, so I obviously still wear it quite a lot. The next one is also a Guerlain fragrance, and this is Tonka Imperiale. Now I adore this fragrance. It is just a beautiful, really classy smelling, but understated Tonka. It's powdery, it's a little bit sweet, but not too much, particularly for someone like me who really steered away from really any sort of sweetness in fragrances for quite some time. This was just the perfect Tonka fragrance for me. And I know there have been a few comparisons between this and Feb Delicious by Maison over the years, and usually the vote goes to the Maison fragrance. I love them both, but to me, this just has an elevated level of sophistication about it. The other one is more complex, yes, and there's lots more going on in it. This is perhaps a little bit more simple and linear in its composition, but it is really well done. It's absolutely gorgeous. My only disgruntlement about this particular bottle is the really pathetic atomizer. I hate these atomizers. They look pretty, but they're useless. And if it wasn't for this atomizer, this bottle would probably be down to here by now. So I'm very frustrated with it, and I'm even just contemplating buying another one with the proper atomizer on it and either selling this or maybe holding on to it and then one day ripping it off and decanting it into a normal bottle. I'm very disappointed. I lived off several decants of this fragrance before I finally spent the money to buy a full bottle. And just at the time when I was buying a full bottle, they just happened to only release them with these puffer atomizers. You couldn't actually get a normal atomizer one, so very upset about that. The next one is another one that's kind of on the pricier end, and this is Soir by Maison Francis Kurkdjian. This is definitely one of my most beloved amber fragrances in my collection. I just love how it's so different in the dry down to the opening. Although the amber accord in there is very much, you know, constant throughout, but you just get more of those, I guess, the citruses in the opening, which makes it a little bit brighter, a little bit crisper, and a little bit more formal. And then in the dry down, it just becomes this beautiful, soft, fluffy amber that just envelops you like a warm hug, and it is just gorgeous. And what I also really like about this fragrance is that it transitions very well from a very sort of casual Friday night on the couch with a glass of wine watching a movie to a very formal event where it's black tie. And I think I have described this in previous videos as being very much a black tie fragrance for me. I always think of a man in a tuxedo or a woman in a floor-length black ball gown when I smell this fragrance. The next one will come as no surprise, I'm sure. It is Ormonde Woman by Jayne. This is another one that I feel transitions quite well from a day-to-day wear kind of perfume that you can wear to work or out running errands or whatever, but it could also be formal enough to wear to a special event at night time, because it does have that real depth to it. It does have a lot of darkness to it. Oh, it's just so good. It's just so good. And actually a few people have contacted me recently saying that they think this is reminiscent of other things that they've smelled. Unfortunately, I have not been able to get hold of the fragrances that they have referenced as being similar to this, but to me, this is a very unique fragrance, and I haven't really smelled anything quite like this. I just feel very mysterious when I'm wearing this, and very grown up and very womanly. The next fragrance has many flankers and is very old, has been around for a very long time, is not going to be going anywhere anytime soon, I don't think. A lot of people think it's dated. I do not. I think, especially being someone who's only recently discovered it and fallen in love with it, I don't feel it's dated at all. In fact, I think it's timeless. And that is Chanel No. 5. Now, this is the eau de parfum, and you may recall that for many videos I was saying that though I had fallen in love with Chanel No. 5 in many other forms, the eau de parfum was just one that I could not get along with. Well, now I do. I just do. It just happened. I don't know how it happened, but it just did. So I now have this in this format. I have it in the EDT, I have it in the Parfum, and I also have it in the Eau Premiere flanker. In fact, this flanker was the introduction to me to Chanel No. 5. This is what opened the floodgates for me, and I still really love it. I don't think I could ever be without Chanel No. 5 in my fragrance wardrobe, because it is extremely versatile. It just, for me, you can wear it in the daytime on a really hot day. It's formal enough to wear at nighttime. Yes, it's very popular. Yes, it's worn by a lot of people, but I really don't care. I just love it. The next one is definitely a forever perfume for me, but it's not an everyday forever perfume, and that is Santal Majuscule. This I have actually come to associate as a winter fragrance, even though I have worn it many times in summer on hot days, and I've encouraged people to try wearing it on hot days because That cacao note in the top can be very off-putting to people in terms of, you know, a lot of people wouldn't want to try it in the hot weather thinking that it would choke them out, but it's not too much at all, and it's particularly if you don't overspray it. I do find that cacao note dies down rather quickly and then the rose comes through, so it is very wearable all year round. But the reason I now associate this with winter is because I wore this almost exclusively on a ski trip last year, and now I just associate this with mountains, cold air, whiskey, soup, layers and layers of clothing, and plummeting to my potential death on the side of a mountain. Cheers to Santal Majuscule. The next one is definitely accessible all over the world and easy to get hold of. And it's also been around for a very long time. And that is 24 Faubourg by Hermes. This is the little EDP bottle that I have, 30 mils. It's also the current formulation. Still smells amazing to me. I know lots of perfumistas poo-poo it compared to the vintage version, but I also have a vintage bottle as well of the EDT. And yes, there are differences. However, if you've loved 24 Faubourg in its original formulations, you will still at least very much like it in its later formulations. They are not entirely the same, but they're still very recognizable as being the same perfume. And there are days when I actually prefer this over this and vice versa. So I don't have any qualms about buying recent formulations of this at all whatsoever. And if you like this style of perfume, this vintage style of perfume, then it's still very enjoyable as far as I'm concerned. It's very bold, lots of really loud florals in here, a little bit ashy, and I don't know, I just have this image of myself in a few decades' time being this really cool older lady who wears a bold lip and this perfume, maybe some bird's nest hair going on, and who really just doesn't take crap from anybody, because by then I've been around long enough to earn the right to not really care about what anybody thinks. So this perfume is the dream of my future. And I kind of like that image. The last two are from the same house, and I really, really just wanted to choose one, but I couldn't. And I came very close to just picking one, but then I smelled the other one and I couldn't leave it off the list. I really do adore both of these fragrances, and they serve different purposes for me. So if I'm talking about my forever perfumes, these definitely need to be in there. The first one is a recent acquisition, and it is Amouage, or Beloved Woman by Amouage. This is green, woody, floral, a bit smoky. And when I say smoky, it has that sort of cigarette ash vibe going on. But for me, where Mitsuko I couldn't really wear because that ashy accord or that ashy note smells really sort of stale on my skin. This does not smell like that. I feel very grown up and accomplished wearing this fragrance, and I've worn it daily for quite a few days now, and I wore it daily all throughout January, and I don't think I'm ever going to get sick of this fragrance. It's not for everybody. If you don't like this style of fragrance, then you probably just won't like it. That's just how it is. I discovered this completely by accident, well, or serendipitously, because, is that a word? Because somebody sent me a sample of it and I had never even, it wasn't even on my radar. And I just instantly fell in love with it, and I just couldn't get it out of my mind for an entire month, or more actually. And then I just decided to bite the bullet and buy a bottle, and I do not regret it. And it's 100 mils, it'll last me a very long time. And for me to commit to a 100 ml bottle these days, it has to be pretty special. So that is Beloved Woman. And then the other one, which is the only other full bottle I have from Amouage, is Sunshine Woman. Now this serves a completely different purpose to this one. This is definitely more playful, more flirty, more fruity, and I don't know, I guess more sunny. Although, interestingly, I didn't feel that this was a summer fragrance when I first smelled it, although now I do. Definitely wear it in summertime, but it just wasn't what I was expecting when I first tried it. When I first tried it, I was expecting something light and fruity. This is kind of heavy and a little bit dense and a little bit powdery. And it's amazing. It's just so good. And the florals in here are just out of this world. So yeah, I couldn't decide between them. They, as I said, they serve completely different purposes for me, a completely different mood. But these two fragrances are loves regardless of whether I can wear them in a particular circumstance or not. I don't feel like I can wear these anytime, anywhere. Although Beloved Woman, probably I could, but this one, I think if it's too hot, I probably wouldn't be able to wear it because it would get a little bit cloying. But otherwise, it is an amazing fragrance, and I couldn't leave it off because I really do love it, and I don't want to be without it. So these are my forever fragrances, and I did sit here for quite some time over the past few days, staring at my perfume cabinet, wondering which ones I know I could not do without, or which ones I know that I absolutely, if for some horrendous reason, what a horrible thought, that my perfume collection disappeared tomorrow, these are the ones that I know I would repurchase without even blinking an eye. So I think that says a lot about these particular fragrances. I'm still not decluttering the rest of them though. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you had fun, and very interested to know what your forever fragrances would be. So do let me know in the comments, and speak to you soon. Bye. The next one will come as no surprise, I'm sure. It is Ormonde Woman by